the biggest advantage is that that person keeps me on track and keeps me accountable because as the owner, it's easy for me to say, well, I'll just do it next month, or I'll just do it next month, or I'll do it next year.
Yeah.
So when we do our goals and we do our annual goals and we break it down by quarter and then obviously by month, we in 2 years, myself and my secondhand guy, which is Joe Cost, we have knocked out over 100 what we call rocks of things that we just accomplished. And we look back at it. We just did our 2 year review a couple weeks ago, and we were shocked at how many things that we got done.
Welcome to Mastering the Numbers. I'm your host, Joe Mallo. Hello, everybody. Welcome back to Mastering the Numbers. I am Joe Mallo with the Lead Edge Consulting Group. I'm excited to talk to somebody that I've known for a couple years now, Gregg Rall with Quest Financial and Insurance Services. Gregg, thanks for taking a little bit of time to spend it with me and the audience.
Thank you so much. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah, me as well. Me as well. Hey, Gregg, to get started, can you tell us a little bit more about Quest Financial and Insurance Services?
Yeah, I sure can. So I started Quest Financial and Insurance Services on May 15th in 2011. So we're coming up on 14 years. I started it in Palm Springs, California. I lived out there for quite a while, and then I moved back to Ohio about 10 years ago. And we're a full service insurance agency, so which means that we do personal lines, home, auto, umbrellas, all the toys, RVs, and then we also have a big commercial division, and we do all types of commercial and business accounts. Um, we do a lot of life insurance. We believe life insurance is very important to protect your assets. So we'd like to talk to our clients about a lot of life insurance. We also do IRA rollovers. We don't do anything variables, so we don't have to worry about losing somebody's principal, but we mainly focus on fixed investments. So it's a 401k rollover, or we start a Roth IRA or something small like that. We're able to accommodate our clients. But yeah, we're a full
Okay,
service insurance agency.
great. So what prompted you to move from Palm Springs to back to Ohio?
That's a funny story that I seem to get a question every time.
I bet.
Well, I'm originally from Ohio in the Cleveland area, up on the east side of Cleveland, and well, I transferred out to California. I used to be an executive chef before I got in the insurance business. So I worked for the Ritz-Carlton in Cleveland and Club Corp of America, and I was a chef in Akron City Club, and they needed a chef out in the Rancho Mirage area of Palm Springs, and so I transferred out there back in 1999. And then I was an executive chef for about 9 years in California for a couple of years. Um, and then I decided I didn't want to do it anymore. So I got in the insurance business and started Quest a few years later. And my father was getting older. My parents are still alive. And my dad had a couple heart attacks in 2013. So my wife and I thought it was time to move uh, her and I and our two boys back to Ohio to be closer to her parents and my parents since they were getting in their late 70s and so we could spend some more time with them and be closer.
Yeah. I think that's a great reason to move back to Ohio. I did something similar. I was in Colorado for 11 years, and I moved back for the same exact reason to be closer
Yeah.
to my family. So you went from being an executive chef to getting into the insurance business. What prompted you to start your own business? Not just on the insurance side, but just to start your own business.
Okay. Well, I've always been an entrepreneur and always wanted to own my own business. While I was a chef, I would do catering on the side and I had a catering company. Um, but before I got full time in the insurance business, when I was trending out of being a chef, um, me and a couple of my buddies, we actually got with some farmers in the Coachella Valley out in the Palm Springs area, and we opened up a produce distribution company. So since we had three partners that were farmers and we were salespeople, it was a natural fit. And I knew all the chefs in the desert area, in the Palm Springs area. So
Yeah.
we just started gravitating towards that. We started selling. One of my partners was a broker. We'd go to Mexico and we'd buy out acres of peppers and green onions and all types of fruits and vegetables. And being a transition to that, I was getting my life insurance business going and working on my property and casualty license, which, if you know anything about insurance, it takes a few years to really, to get established and start making some money to where you can support yourself. So I had that business. I did some catering on the side for the first couple of years, and then worked for a family agency during that time. And then I started Quest after about 8 years working for the family agency. And here I am today, and have this company. I have a property management company. I own a couple buildings, commercial real estate, and just kind of keep myself busy.
Yeah. Well, so besides the fact that you were catering and also doing the produce side and doing insurance, what were some of the biggest challenges that you had to overcome at the beginning? Because that's a
Getting
lot.
enough,
That's a
getting enough
lot.
sleep.
Yeah.
In the beginning, it was really rough. I was dating my wife. I mean, we dated for about 16 years before we got married. I mean, being a chef in the early time that we were together, I switched jobs a lot to move up to get a better position. Went from country clubs to big hotels and things like that. And so we always knew we were going to get married someday, but it was just transitioning and getting the right time to where everything was perfect. And then we wanted to have kids. But getting back to being my own boss and that, it's just staying busy and having a life balance. And at the beginning, I didn't really have a life balance.
Yeah.
I was doing pretty much anything that I needed to do to survive. And that's really, being your own boss and being an owner. That's kind of what it takes. And one of our core values at Quest is grit. And, most companies would not use grit as a core value, but that really means, overcoming adversity, not quitting, not stopping if you run into a challenge, overcoming it, whether it's a claim process or we've got a client that has multiple claims and we can't get him insurance. We just keep going. We keep finding, we keep calling, and we keep looking. And I think all of that, 25, 35 years ago got me to where I am today, where, we can overcome adversity. And grit is what it takes to be your own boss and to be in this business environment. If you don't have grit, it's going to be tough to survive unless you're very lucky. Now, if you have a horseshoe in
Yeah.
your pocket and on the other side you have a rabbit's foot, that's all good stuff. But I mean, you have to be able to come adversity. I mean,
Yeah.
making payroll. I mean, people calling off, people getting sick, people, they need time off because they had a baby, and it's just those are just
Yeah.
life things that get in the way, and you got to be prepared to be able to handle that. So
Yeah.
it's a very, very big core value for us for Quest. It's one of our
Yeah.
five.
I like that. I wrote that down. I don't think many of us, many business owners out there have that horseshoe or that rabbit's foot. You truly have to, like you said, kind of grit it out, and you got to put the work
Right.
in, and you got to put your head down. I think that's great. Not back at the beginning when you had three to four things going on, but as you were you're moving back to Ohio, starting the agency here. How were you able to balance your personal and your professional life maybe a little bit better than you were before?
If you ask me, I thought I was doing a great job. If you ask my wife, she would probably disagree a little bit. Moving an entire agency back to the East Coast and still having an office for about 9 months to a year that I had it open in California was a little rough. I mean, I traveled back and forth because my wife and kids came back for a year before I moved back. So I would come back
Yeah.
about every 6 weeks or so, stay for a week, fly back. And then when I moved here, I would do that back there. I would fly back every 6 weeks because I had a lot of clients on the West Coast and still do. We're still growing out there. But when it comes to balance, really, you just have to really be organized and prioritize. Dr. Covey's Seven Habits was always a big inspiration for me. The four quadrants. If you haven't read the book or taken any of his courses, prioritize. You got the four quadrants, and
Yeah.
doing the stuff that's important and immediate. Getting those knocked out, and then the small stuff. You have somebody else you delegate, or you move it till the next day. I mean, you have to have time for the kids. You got to have time for your
Yeah.
wife. Um, you need time to work out. You need time for, your spiritual or whatever that is. Some people walk or they run or they go to church. Um, so it's just scheduling, keeping to the schedule and prioritizing. And once in a while, something gets bumped because something more important comes. And when it happens, you have to recognize it and make a decision and then go back to the other one that you bumped or moved to make sure you get it done. And that's kind of my key to success is, I tell my staff I work on 10 things at a time. So if I start something, and a good example is life insurance, Joe, if I'm working on life insurance on you and we've done the application and I submitted it, and now we're waiting for underwriting to make a decision. Well, I kind of take that out of my top 10 and it goes to my B list. And then, a week later, 10 days, when underwriting gives me something else to work on, then it comes back into my top 10 and I do what I need to do. And then it either gets completed or, goes back in because I'm waiting on them to do something. I'm waiting on you, or you have to get medical done or whatever. Um, and I just keep working on my top 10 list. And that just seems to me that, it works for me. I don't stress if I can't get something done today. Some things just take multiple days, and
Right.
you have to be realistic in your goals. And the most important thing is be realistic with the clients. I'm not going to tell you, oh yeah, I'm going to have your life insurance back to you tomorrow, with which I know you have to get medical scheduled. I have to get maybe some physician statements, and that's not a true. It's going to be, 2 to 3 to 4 weeks, depending on how long it takes you to get your blood work done and those types of things, plus what I need to do. So
Yeah.
being realistic in the expectation and the timeline is very helpful too. So you don't stress yourself out.
Yeah, I think that's important. I mean, stress gets all of us at times, but you have to try to manage it the best you can, in my opinion. So, when you look at your business, is there anything that you would have done differently in the growth of your business? Kind of, you said hindsight 2020.
Yes. So when I moved back to Ohio in 2014, and obviously we're in 2025 now. I actually, so I belong to an organization that it's a large conglomerate of independent agencies, and they asked me to become the regional vice president for Ohio while I was still operating my own agency, which is very unique. Most times I would have to sell my business, whatever, but because I'm Greg and I can do multiple things, I said I can do both. And I actually did both jobs for 5.5 years, and I was very successful. I wasn't super successful. Like I would give myself a B plus. They were happy with my performance, but I wasn't doing both jobs at an A plus level, and that bothered me. After 5.5 years, I decided to step back. I still belong to the organization. I still work with them. We still meet all the time. And one of the best things is that I was able to, being the regional vice president for that, I was able to meet with the insurance carriers in the Columbus area and do presentations to them almost on a quarterly or semi-annual basis. And I'm talking with the presidents and the CFOs and the
Yeah.
ones that make the actual rules and the rates and all that. So I was able to talk to them as an insurance agent and an owner, and as the regional vice president for this large conglomerate. And I had a little clout, so we were able to get some things changed. Probably what I would do differently is I probably wouldn't have taken that job, and I would have worked on Quest 5 years sooner.
Yeah.
Because when I left them in 2018, almost 2019, I mean, since then we have more than a 500% increase. I mean, we doubled and doubled and doubled again. About every 18 months to 2 years, it seems like we're doubling. And our next schedule for that is going to be, well, this one's going to be a little bit longer because now we're pretty large now. This one we're probably going to double in about another 19 to 24 months, and we're right on target. We did a 10-year plan 2 years ago, and we're within 6 months of that goal.
That's
Every time we
great.
do our annual, yeah. So either we might be off premium volume or clients, or but we're hit one and not the other. But it's the growth is there, So I would focus more on quests sooner than
Yeah.
when I did later. That's probably what I would change differently. You can't do multiple jobs and do multiple things A+ level.
Yeah.
Very few people can do that.
Yeah. I think I hear that a lot from business owners that they'll take on multiple projects at the beginning, maybe because revenue isn't where they want it to be. So they think by having multiple projects, there'll be multiple revenue streams when at the end they have the same aha moment as you. I could have gone faster if it was just one,
Yeah.
one
I,
project at a time.
I've learned that having a coach. I hired a coach 2 years ago, and really, it's to the biggest advantage is that that person keeps me on track and keeps me accountable. Because as the owner, it's easy for me to say, "Well, I'll just do it next month," or "I'll just do it next month," or "I'll do it next year."
Yeah.
So when we do our goals and we do our annual goals and we break it down by quarter, and then obviously by month, we in 2 years, myself and my second hand guy, which is Joe Cost, we have knocked out over 100 what we call rocks of things that we just accomplished. And we look back at it. We just did our 2 year review a couple weeks ago, and we were shocked at how many things that we got done. I
Yeah.
mean, we're looking at the list and we're going, "Wow, we would never have got that done if we didn't have somebody," because we weren't taking them all at one bite. It's kind of like the old,
Right.
with the elephant, you don't eat it all at once, you take little bites. And that's really what we did. What was the most priority? What are some things that were going to take 2 years, like technology? We were changing management systems. That took 18 months. We knew we weren't going to get, but we had to start the process 18 months ago. Start reviewing them, get it down to the ones we wanted. Then we had to talk about how we're going to switch it over. So, like, starting those processes, and some things we were able to knock out right away. Some things took 6 months. And just being able to look back and, having a coach to keep you accountable and to keep you organized was the best decision I ever made. So I would say any business owner out there, you can't do it on your own. I mean, you really need a coach. You need somebody that can hold you accountable and keep you on track.
Yeah, agreed. So what I mean, you have a ton of energy. Every time I see you, you have a ton of energy. You're always smiling. What motivates you and keeps you focused to continue to double and double and double the business? I mean, what's behind the curtain?
It's kind of a little. I hate to say it like this, but it's a little selfish and very simple. Um, I grew up in a small town in Lake County, Ohio. East Lake. I went to a good school. I graduated from Lake Catholic. Um, but I'm not a student of school. I didn't go to a 4 year college. I went to the Army right out of high school. It gave me a lot of discipline, a lot of confidence. And quite honestly, going through the military, no matter what branch it is, I mean, we all joke about other branches, but in all honesty, any service is fabulous because it gives you that confidence that you can accomplish anything. And that was the basis of that's where I started changing. Right when I was 18 years old, right out of high school, I went to culinary school. I got activated for the first Kuwait War. I came back. I finished school, you know, and I knew what I wanted to do and where I wanted to be. But, what really motivates me is as simple as, and I came from a small town and I just want to make it big. And
Yeah.
school is great. You can go to Harvard or Yale or Ohio State or wherever, and that's all fabulous. School is great. I'm not saying it's not, but some people like me are better with just, you know, hard work, common sense, and just learning it. And
Yeah.
other people are book smart and they learn that way. I like diving in and doing it. And I really do it for my two boys, Angelo and Dominic. And anybody who knows me, I'm a bit I love my sport coats. So this is a little private information here, but I love sport coats. So I get my sport coats specially designed for me. They come to my office, they measure me, I pick out the liners, stitching, buttons, and everything. But inside the breast pocket, inside, I have my boys' names in there that are right over my heart. And it's every sport
Yeah.
coat that I've had made says Angelo and Dominic in it.
Yeah.
And that just drives me. that when I'm having a rough day and this is the day I want to quit and sell and I'm going to go do something else, I remember that, or I'll put my hand in my heart, or I'll reach into my and get a business card out of my pocket, and it'll remind me that
Yeah.
I'm not doing this really for me. I'm really doing this for them and their generation. And that's really what drives me are my two boys. Now, they don't want to be in the business. They're 17 and 14 right now. So no, nobody wakes up at 12 and says, I want to be an insurance agent.
Yeah.
You know?
They probably don't truly know what they want to be
Right.
at this
True. You're
point.
right. So, but
Well, at 12 for sure, but at 17, I still don't think they know what they want.
no, not
But
not yet. Definitely not insurance. I can tell you that.
yeah, that's probably not the first thing that comes to mind. So what are some of the biggest changes that are happening in the insurance industry?
Oh my gosh. Well, technology, AI is taking it by storm. I mean, just the last 2 years, you see automation. So in the old days, 5, 6, 7 years ago, considering that's old, right? Um, an underwriter would touch every piece of business. Now, with AI technology, that when you put in the address, let's say we're doing a simple home and auto, you put in the address, they will pull MVRs, they will pull from the motor vehicle reports, the cars are registered to that address, they'll pull the square footage of a house, all of that from the county. And it'll say, hey, there's 4 cars registered to that house. Are these still accurate? You know?
Yeah,
And then you just kind of click the box, you can get through a quote, but not every piece of business now is being looked at by a person. So
yeah,
if you go through the application, you answer things correctly, and they can through AI do a visual roof to see how your roof looks, which is the technology that they have now. No one really needs to look at that now. The AI technology is saying that the roof is in good shape or not, which is
yeah.
crazy,
It
but and
is.
it's lightning fast, and you're able to put more homes through and autos through, and
Yeah,
less people are looking at it. So personal lines for sure within the next 5 years, I don't even know if there's really going to be an underwriter on the other end
yeah,
with the insurance companies looking at that because they're gonna have this dialed in and it's going to be all AI technology and that. And on the commercial side, it's similar on the smaller, easier type class codes, office exposure. But when you get into heavy construction and things like that, obviously someone's looking at that still. Um, but we're able to again pull information if they have loans on equipment out there. If you ask them if they have, a bucket truck or a big crane, and they're like, oh no, I don't know any of those. I always rent them. Well, then there's one that they have a loan on, and they can pull this data that's out
yeah,
there.
yeah.
And it's crazy that you have to be. I mean, not that they wouldn't be honest normally, but you have to. You can't say, well, my brother owns that, and I just rent it from him.
Right.
There's all this.
Because AI is going to find it out.
Yes. Yeah. You really can't fudge in the days. You can't even fudge your revenue anymore because
Yeah,
now the AI is starting to, and I don't think they go and they get your tax return because I think that's still blocked, but I think they're able to get public knowledge. Like if you applied for a loan and they kind of take all the loan apps that you did and they
yeah,
kind of gather that and they do an average, because we all may fib on our revenue if we're trying to get a loan, maybe at
yeah,
5% or something. Um, but they're kind of take that and they'll be like, oh no, 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 you said your revenue is 500,000 and we see you're like 850, you know.
yeah,
So a little bit of a difference there. So AI definitely is changing the way insurance is, and it will get better, I believe, and I think it'll get easier. I think we'll still need agents, though. We'll need less of us, but we will still
yeah,
need professionals that understand and can explain it, though.
yeah. Yeah, so I guess that's something to put in the memory bank. Don't falsify your applications because AI is probably gonna figure it out, where maybe an
Oh yeah.
underwriter might not always figure it out. So, how does Quest? How do you and your partners in Quest separate themselves from other full service insurance agencies out there?
Actually, we have a couple different ways. So we don't. When I say this, I mean it's obvious, but I mean we don't shop on price, even though price is important. we try to get our clients to look at coverages and what their needs are so we can really protect them, because there's nothing worse when, they're price conscious and then they're paying whatever per month and they have a claim and then it's not covered. Well,
Yeah.
you didn't want to go up and add that enhancement. You didn't want to add that endorsement. You didn't want, you wanted to get it to $100 a month, or
Right.
whatever. So we kind of do a reverse psychology. We first we get their current policies and we tell our clients, block out the pricing. We really don't care. What the pricing is. We're not looking at that. We'll look at it, but we don't use it.
Yeah.
We look at what they have and we go through their endorsements and we really understand what they need and what their needs are. And then we ask them more questions. Okay, have you added a pool since you've bought this house? That may not be on here. Do you have dogs now that since you've moved in and you've had this policy? We uncover so many items that people don't even think about because their current agent just keeps renewing, renewing, renewing.
Yeah.
So on the front end, we do a deep dive. On the commercial side, we on accounts we have them sign a non-disclosure agreement. There's very few agencies that use an NDA, and the reason why we separate ourselves apart is because if I'm dealing with a business that does $20 million a year in revenue and sales, I need personal financial information. I need the company's profit and loss. I need a lot of personal and loss runs and personal information to the business. And I want them to know that we're going to take that information seriously and we're going to protect it. And we're not going to just, not everybody in the office is going to look at it. It's only the people that need to see it and the underwriters at the insurance carriers level. We're not, we're not going in a sales training meeting with our other team members and be like, okay, let's talk about company A, B, and C, and let's look at their financials. And we're not doing that. It's only I will see a lot of them if I'm working with my staff and then the underwriters. And we keep that information very close to the chest and we hold it private. And that's very important to us.
Yeah.
And then on the renewal process, we use a lot of technology to start the process, 60 to 90 days out or 120 days out, depending on the account and what type of account it is. And, has anything changed? Is there something, you're thinking about doing, like, updating your kitchen? You're going to spend $100,000 on a new kitchen or adding in an in-ground pool and so on and so forth. And we send these out periodically just to remind people that these are things you need to be telling us, because a lot of people just do things and they don't think about it. When you put an in-ground pool in, there's a whole different liability risk, to your homeowners. And if you have big dogs and vicious dogs and those types of things, it changes the coverages. So we want to make sure that they're thinking about us whenever they're doing these life changes. And then we do a real review. We send them an email or a phone call and we say, your renewal's coming up in 35, 40 days. Do you have time to sit down for 15 to 20 minutes? It could be on the phone, could be in person, could be on a Zoom call. We're very accommodating. 30% of them are fine because the renewal is not that big a deal. It went up a few dollars. They're not concerned with it. Nothing's changed. And then we're good. The renewal goes through. The
Yeah.
other ones, we go through it and we talk to them and we start asking them questions. Any new jewelry that you bought each other. I
Yeah.
had a client a couple of weeks ago. His wife bought him a $22,000 Rolex and they've had it for a year and a half and it's not on the insurance policy.
Yeah.
You know, and last year when we asked them about the renewal, they forgot all about it. So
Right.
I said, well, what about last year when we talked? I even have it in my notes that we even talked about it. And he goes, yeah, we were just thinking I go, it's $22,000. Don't you want to insure that if someone steals that? So those are things that we try to uncover and then we
Yeah.
have a conversation with them. So we really want to educate and we give our clients as much knowledge as they can because what they always say, knowledge is power. And a smarter client is a better client and a long lasting client for us. That seems to be our model.
Yeah. Yeah. I think those are some great different differentiators. Quality is better than quick. So that's what I always say. Hey,
Yeah.
two more questions for you to kind of round this out. What's the best business advice that anybody's ever given you along the way?
Wow. Um, I think it goes back to the core, and I think it's the best one. I had which is really funny. I had a farmer back in the Palm Springs area that it was a I was quoting his insurance, and it was a very large farm. I mean, he's $100 million in revenue, and I was asking him his success, and he said if I can give you any advice, stay true to yourself and always stay within your boundaries. And he added, and he goes, that doesn't mean you can't stretch and grow. That's not what I'm saying. He goes, but if you know that that's too big for you at this time, then you be honest with yourself and you hand it off to somebody who can
Yeah,
do it.
yeah,
And that's really what he meant. To stay within your boundaries, grow at your pace. And with the accounts that I'm doing today, because I've been licensed 25 years, it's when I was 25 years ago, I was not doing the same size accounts I'm doing today. I mean, I'm doing much
yeah,
larger accounts today, and that's kind of always stuck with me. Learn and keep growing, but don't take four leaps
right,
and then you mess it up, and then you could be out of business the very next day. So stay within
yeah.
your boundaries, stretch a little bit, grow, stretch, grow, stretch. So
I think that's great advice, for sure. Probably advice I could have taken a couple times in my career. Um, so final question. Let's say you run into somebody who's been in business for a couple years. They're stressed. They're struggling. Things aren't going as well as they thought they would. What kind of advice would you give them?
wow. Well, I think we need to first look at where they started and what their plan was. If hopefully they had a business plan, and then we look at that to see how they deviated from that, whether they came short, they are not doing the same things that they wanted to do when they started. Some people grow in a different direction. It's almost like being in a marriage, right? Like say you're going down
Yeah,
another path. So finding out, what they started out, is that what they're still doing? Is that what they still want to do? And if they do, then how do we get them back on track to get down that path? You must have goals. You have to break down those goals to realistic, small bites, small rocks, whatever you want to say, um, with the end in with the end in mind. And I think that's where business owners, because you're wearing so many hats, that you lose track of what you really started off doing. And that's where the farmer, when he said stay true to yourself, it's kind of like stay true to what your goal is and what you want your business to be. That doesn't mean you can't branch off and do other things and expand your offerings, but stay true to where you're going. You're not going to start off in you know a dry cleaner, and the next thing you know, you're doing automotive parts.
right.
I mean, those don't go together. But if you're doing dry cleaning, then you start adding on pickup and delivery, and then you start, doing some laundry services and things like that. You're doing full service dry cleaning, and that, those all kind of go together. And just, having a good plan. You have to understand where you want to go to. That old analogy, you can't plan a trip if you don't know where you're going. I
Right.
mean, you just don't get in your car and start driving, you know. So you have to have an idea where you want to go, and then you start going backwards and how to get there. It's really basic stuff, and I think people overthink it. Um, and it's not easy, but it's not really that hard either. You know what I mean? You just have to spend the time to plan where you want to be, and then you just work backwards. You know.
It's great. Listen, Greg, I really appreciate you taking time out of your day. I know how busy you are to spend it with me and my audience. If anybody wants to get a hold of you, what's the best way for them to do it?
Actually, phone or email is great. The phone number is 855-857-9500. And then my email address is my name, Greg with two G's, Gregg at Quest, FIS.com. And those are probably the two best ways. And yeah, so send me a message, give me a call. We could talk. Hopefully I can help. I'm more than happy to help other business owners, reach their goals. I mean, it just makes everybody good, right? So
Absolutely. I always think that small businesses, we have to help each other, you know,
yeah, I mean, because we're beating the
to
big
succeed.
guys, right? I mean, we
Yeah,
get it. Time together to beat the big guys. They have all the money.
That's right. That's right. Well, Greg, once again, thank you very much for taking part. Everybody out there listening, thank you for being a part of it as well. And just want to do a quick shout out to my marketing team at Check Off Your List, Alyssa and Lisa, for making this whole podcast happen and having it distributed every week. Thanks again, everyone, and we'll catch you on the next episode of Mastering the Numbers. Take care, Greg.
Thank you. Yeah, have a good one.
You've just tuned into another episode of Mastering the Numbers. We hope you found valuable insight to boost your financial success. Be sure to subscribe on your favorite platform and leave us a review. Keep pushing forward, and thanks for listening.